What is up everyone, welcome back to another video. Game Week 8 looks like it's going to happen, so today we're having a look at my Game Week 8 transfer plans. What is up everyone, welcome back to another video. FPL Harry here, and today, as I mentioned, we're going to have a look towards Game Week 8, what fixtures I think are going to happen, what transfer plans I am having a look at making. So before we have a look at my team, which is what we normally do at the beginning of these videos, the first elephant in the room is we got to discuss what's going to happen in Game Week 8, how many fixtures are we going to have, everything like that. So for me, there are 3 different scenarios that could take place going into Game Week 8 that we've got here. Number 1, all fixtures go ahead, and this is actually quite possible. Given that the Queen's funeral is taking place on Monday, this means that Saturday and Sunday in theory is free for the policing to take place and to manage those Premier League matches, even those ones taking place in London. They have also said that the matches going into Game Week 8, they don't really have the capacity to go and cancel all of them, given the congestion later into the season. Option 2 is that they cancel London-based fixtures. So there are only a few of these, but for example, Chelsea against Liverpool and Brentford against Arsenal, these fixtures could get cancelled again due to the pressure on policing, given the amount of people and the crowds that are currently in London over that weekend. But for example, games taking place on Friday night or games taking place elsewhere in the UK wouldn't need to be cancelled because that isn't that pressure going on there, but London-based fixtures could be postponed. And then option 3, which I think is very unlikely to happen, is all games being cancelled again. At the end of last week, when Game Week 7 got moved, I think this was the predicted scenario that there would be no Game Week 8, but I think now we will have some fixtures taking place this week. The final big question is the Brighton versus Crystal Palace game, which is currently being postponed. It was postponed due to rail strikes taking place next weekend, but there are no rail strikes being taken place anymore. They have been postponed. Now, there is a chance that this Brighton Crystal Palace game gets reinstated, given that it's not a London-based fixture. So if either option 1 or 2 take place, there is a good chance that this fixture gets put back in. If I had to predict, I think option 2 will take place and there will be no Brighton versus Crystal Palace fixture, but we'll have to wait and see exactly what the announcements are. We need to think about our teams in a couple of different scenarios and what will happen if either 1, 2 or even 3 take place. So this is my team for Game Week 8 up on screen now. I have 2 free transfers and 1.3 million in the bank, so I am quite flexible with what I am able to do. I've got Ward starting in goal because I have Sanchez on my bench, who currently has no fixture, and Andreas Pereira of Fulham has come in with his Nottingham Forest fixture because I also have Pascal Gross, who is now sitting on my bench, last on my bench with no fixture as well. If I think about the teams that have a match taking place in London, I have Martinelli, I have Jesus, and then I have Tony, I have Salah, and I have Trent. I have 5 players in my starting 11 that I would lose if there were no London-based fixtures. Now, this could definitely force me into a wild card this week or even a free hit if I did lose that many players. Now, on the bench, I do have Saliba and I do have Patterson, who could come in, cover a couple of those. So I would only be missing 3 players from my starting 11 if that did take place. Now, the players generally that I'm not happy with in my team, Jesus is one that I'm looking at. The Arsenal fixtures are taking a turn for the worse going into the next couple of weeks. Yes, they play Brentford this week, but for example, if that gets cancelled, he could definitely be one that leaves my team. Elsewhere on my bench, I've spoken about Saliba, a player that I'm not happy with as well. Those Arsenal fixtures do not look good going forward, and he's not been performing well in terms of his FPL returns. Pascal Gross and Sanchez, again, 2 others that I'm looking at. Although they've been great servants without Potter in charge, we don't know exactly what we're going to get from Brighton, and their fixtures do not look good after Game Week 8. Now, if Game Week 8 fixture comes back and they do up playing Crystal Palace this week, then I think I'll end up keeping both of these and probably starting them, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Just for your information, I think we're expecting an announcement either Monday or Tuesday this week to determine what's going to happen going into next weekend, so people have time to prepare and there's nothing unknown going into the weekend. So those are the 4 players that I'm looking at. Captaincy currently on Haaland. Again, there's no chance that I move it off him, especially given that Salah has that difficult fixture against Chelsea, which is in doubt of going ahead. Now, if that fixture gets cancelled, there's definitely a possibility that I end up selling Salah. It's a lot of money to hold in a player who's not performing and then doesn't even have a fixture as well. So let's have a look at some of those potential transfer replacements and talk about a few more of those scenarios. So we're going to talk about the Brighton guys first. The first one we've got up is Pascal Gross. Now, he's been a great servant for me. His positioning in the first half of their Game Week 6 fixture was not as good as I wanted from him. He was very wide, not getting in the box. But second half, when he came more central, he looked a much improved player, which is when he got his assist as well. However, Game Week 8, they do have a blank, followed by Liverpool and Tottenham. Now, Game Week 11 and 12 do see a nicer run of a couple of fixtures, but then Game Week 13 as well. Those fixtures are not good for them, and we don't know how they're going to perform under new management. If he doesn't play, I think he's a simple sell, especially because I'll be playing my wildcard hopefully around Game Week 12 as well, so I could bring him back in for that Nottingham Forest fixture as well if I wanted to. In terms of his replacements, Leon Bailey at Aston Villa, again, we've spoken about him about being a really nice cheap enabler now. Being the biggest troll at the start of the season, he now looks like he could be back starting in that Aston Villa team. They also have a really nice run of fixtures coming up as well. Of course, scored against Manchester City is a really nice option. Then the two probably most popular options in midfield at the moment is Saint-Maximin, who has been injured, but as we're going to talk about with some of the goalkeeper replacements, they have a lovely run of fixtures starting this week, including Bournemouth at home in Game Week 8. Definitely a fixture I could look to target. He should be back fit, ready to play. He was going to be back fit for Game Week 7, so he should be fine to play in Game Week 8 as well. And then finally, Marcus Rashford. Again, Manchester United having Leeds this week. It's a good fixture for them, and Marcus Rashford looks like he's finally returning to some of the form that we've seen from him in the past couple of weeks. So even if this fixture does get reinstated, I am looking at selling Pascal Gross over the next couple of weeks. I don't think it will take place this week, even if there is a full round of fixtures. I don't think Brighton will accept, with a new manager coming in later this week, that they'll want that fixture to take place. So I am looking at selling Pascal Gross with one of my 2 free transfers. At the moment, Rashford and Saint-Maximin are probably the two I'm looking at, with Saint-Maximin's fixtures being the most appealing. Next up, we have Sanchez in goal. Now, we've got to bear in mind that I do currently have Ward starting in my team, but Ward plays against Tottenham, which would be a London-based fixture, which again could be cancelled. So not only would I have a difficult fixture for Ward away at Tottenham, I'd also have Sanchez with a blank fixture in goal. So I am looking to sell him again, as we spoke about with Gross. Those fixtures coming up are not good. Don't see necessarily a lot of clean sheets, and I'm really concerned about how Brighton are going to look under new management. Although the players are the same, they are a very system-based team under Potter, and I think they could have a bit of a weakening in terms of their performances. Now, the players and the goalkeepers that I'm looking at, the first one we've got is Nick Pope. Again, I spoke about Saint-Maximin. Their fixture run is really nice. I already have Trippier, but I'm not necessarily against doubling up on their defence, given how good they've looked so far this season. Really impressed, and he's good for save points, and he's good for bonus points, which has not necessarily been the case for a lot of goalkeepers so far this season. Next up, we have Dean Henderson. Again, a nice option. Their defence has not been that solid, but he is saving penalties. He is getting a lot of save points as well. Not expecting a lot of clean sheets for him, but he is slightly cheaper than Nick Pope, and if I don't want to double up on that Newcastle defence, I could definitely go in for Henderson. And now the final one we've got here is Iverson, and the reason he's in here is Leicester, after the Tottenham game, have a really nice run of fixtures starting. Now, I do run the risk that there's no fixture for them going this week, and of course I then couldn't make that transfer. But if I could wait until Game Week 9 and actually do the double up again, now I don't necessarily think it's the best move, but it would free up a lot of money that I could invest elsewhere with some of the other transfers that I am wanting to make. And again, as I said, they've not performed well at the beginning of the season, but they have had some tricky fixtures. From Game Week 9 onwards, they have a really nice run of fixtures. I don't think this is going to be the transfer, but I did consider it. I think Nick Pope is about the 95% sure the transfer I will go with. Double up on them if Sanchez doesn't play this week. Moving into Arsenal, we start up front, Gabriel Jesus. Now, of course, he plays Brentford away, but if that fixture doesn't take place, or even if it does, there are 2 strikers that I'm looking at. I did have a few others in here, but realistically, there are only 2 that I'm considering buying. Again, we're talking about Newcastle, Isaac there. Callum Wilson looks like he could be back for Game Week 8, if not Game Week 9, which does put a little bit of uncertainty about exactly what Isaac's going to play. Is it going to be Callum Wilson through the middle with Isaac on the right-hand side in replace of Amron? Is it going to be 2 up front? But then where does that mean Saint-Maximin plays? There are a few of these moving parts that we do need to consider if we are buying Newcastle attackers. But he is a nice price at 7 million. They do have a great run of fixtures, including Bournemouth at home in Game Week 8 as well. It's definitely a transfer that I'm looking at making. But the one that is the most popular, of course, is Mitrovic. And finally, that Fulham fixture run has arrived. Game Week 8 was the fixture that we had targeted for Fulham, for Mitrovic. They play Nottingham Forest this week, and it is the start of their very nice fixture run. He is about the same price now. He's had a lot of price rises so far this season, up to 6.9 million. Again, a lot of you looking at forward transfers, he is the one that I think will be going. If you're looking at Ivan Toney, you have missed his hat-trick. I think it's a bit reactionary to go and buy him now. I'd be buying Mitrovic over Ivan Toney again, just because those Fulham fixtures are really nice. I need to wait and see what happens on this fixture, but I'm definitely considering moving Jesus to Mitrovic. If it's not this week, given their fixtures from Game Week 9 onwards, that is a fixture that I'll make Game Week 9 if I don't make it Game Week 8. And finally, we have in defence, we have Saliba of Arsenal again. The same three options that I looked at last week. Reece James I could go to straight away. Again, slightly unsure exactly what's going to happen with that Chelsea defence. They do play Liverpool this week, so I could play Saliba against Brentford and then move to Reece James. Next week, it is definitely a transfer that I am looking at. Perisic, again, when he starts, he's so good. But of course, that is that threat of Sessegnon. But given they've had a week off, there is a high chance that Perisic starts the next couple of games. And the final one we've got is Emerson. I could just take the money out of them because I've got Trent, Cancelo and Trippier all starting every week. I could have Patterson and Emerson on my bench, rotate in and out when I need, and just take that money and invest it elsewhere in my squad. The issue I've got is Saliba, James and Perisic all have fixtures in London this week. So if scenario 2 takes place, I would be without any three of them. Emerson is away at Everton, so that fixture should be fine despite him playing for a London-based club. But again, I'll probably have to wait, and I would really advise all of you waiting on the news of what's going to happen next week. I'm seeing 15,000 transfers in for players going into this week. Don't make any transfers until we know what's going to happen with the Game Week 8 fixtures. So this is how I'm lining up going into Game Week 8 at the moment. Of course, I've got to wait to see what happens with the London-based fixtures, with the fixtures in general. I'm generally looking at Jesus out to Mitrovic. I'm also looking at Sanchez out to Pope as my second transfer. And I'm also considering a -4 of Gross to either Leon Bailey or St. Maximin as well. Those are the transfers that I'm looking at. Jesus out will free up a lot of money that gives me the flexibility to go and buy Reece James, for example, in a couple of weeks as well. If there is no London-based fixtures, I think I'll end up taking a -4. I don't think it's worth me playing my wildcard. I definitely don't think it's worth me playing my free hit as well, unless, of course, they give us an extra free hit, which is possible. There's a lot of debate in the community at the moment about whether they'd give us a second free hit or not. I think they will if there's a large amount of cancellations, but if there's only 4 or 5 games off, I don't think they will. So let's see how many games take place. I am not really wanting to play my only free hit. Wildcard is possible, but I think I'll maybe take a -4 going into this week and save my wildcard a little bit further down the line. If you've got any questions about what's going to happen in Game Week 8, any questions about your team as well, drop it all in the comment section down below, and I will of course answer all the questions I can. Any questions asked in the first hour, 2 hours, I will 100% answer. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Hopefully we get some football back in Game Week 8. There's also Champions League for us to enjoy during the midweek as well. I hope you had a nice weekend. Like and subscribe before you go, and I'll be back again very soon.